we're in a different season of our relationship, and especially with my older daughter Zoe. I mean, we're in a completely different season of our relationship, and I love it. Like, it's so fun. I'm not going to say I'm not their mom, because I'm always going to be their mom. And even though in some ways we're more friends, I'm still going to give them advice. I'm still going to tell them what I think they need to hear, even if it isn't what they want to hear. I'm never going to stop, because they need me to be their mom. But it's a little bit lighter in terms of the daily nagging, if you will.
Hello, and welcome to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. This podcast is about exploring the grief that occurs at different times in our lives, in which we have had major changes and transitions that literally shake us to the core and make us experience grief. I created this podcast for people to feel a little less hopeless and alone in their own grief process as they hear the stories of others who have had similar journeys. I'm Kendra Rinaldi, your host. Now, let's dive right into today's episode. So this year, I've been so lucky that now, after 2 years of having the podcast, I sometimes get to have some of the guests I've had in the past come back and onto the podcast because things in life change, and therefore there are more things to add to these conversations. So today is one of those times. We have Dara Kurtz on the podcast today. We had her episode. Oh my goodness, has it been almost 2 years, Dara?
It has.
Probably, right?
I
It
know.
has, right? That's
Time is like
crazy.
all kind of confusing right now, isn't it?
I know it is, right? It's just so weird. So, she is the author of a blog called Crazy Perfect Life, and as well as the author that was like that doesn't the creator. She's the author of a book. She's the creator of the blog Crazy Perfect Life and the author of I Am My Mother's Daughter: Wisdom on Life, Loss and Love. And our first podcast was talking about the death of her mom, and this podcast interview is going to be of a whole other topic of grief, which is regarding how it is to be empty nesters now with your daughters being off to college. So, welcome, Dara.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such a joy to see you again. And
I know. And this time we're seeing, last time I think we only heard each other. We didn't have the video
I
as we were
know, yeah,
chatting.
yeah.
And
So,
life is so funny because after I shared your podcast, we realized we had a friend in common that we didn't know before that we have Mari that we share in
yes,
common. So
I
that's
love
so
that.
funny.
So fun.
Yeah, all these connections. So Dara, share with us about your life. Where do you live? Just in case people haven't heard your other episode, they can hear a little bit about you.
I live in North Carolina, and I live with my husband, John. We've been married for over 25-ish years, and we have two daughters. Our youngest went to college this past August, and our oldest is a senior in college. So we are officially empty nesters, started that in August. And it's been a really interesting time, which I look forward to sharing with you.
Well, I can't wait. Yeah, so tell us about them. Like, what are you okay sharing their
Oh,
names and
yeah.
stuff too? Yeah, that way when we're
Their whole
talking
life
about,
is
so
like already out there. Absolutely.
yes, right.
I
So so the one that graduated first, the one that's now looking basically already in her next chapter of career life,
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
soon.
My oldest daughter Zoe is a senior in college, and she actually this past weekend we went and looked for apartments with her. She'll be graduating in May, and she'll be staying in North Carolina. So that's amazing. She'll be 2 hours from here. So of course I was like, I wish you were just an hour away like you are now. But anyway, I mean, 2 hours is, that's such a blessing. And then our youngest daughter, Avi, started her freshman year in college. So yeah, it's
So
been
that
super
yeah, so
fun.
first you
And
had to deal with first you had to deal with one leaving and then adjusting to that, and then what, 3 years later was when Avi went to
yes,
school? Is that
yes,
about the
correct.
difference?
Mhm.
Okay. So let's talk about when Zoe graduated from high school, and that first transition of not completely being empty nesters, but that aspect of, okay, here we are, family of four and five with a dog, but family of four. And now all of a sudden it shifts to three, and how that dynamic changed.
It's interesting because my family, well, first of all, my family is super close. I mean, we just laugh that like sometimes we feel like we're abnormally close. I mean, we really do share a lot, family group chat going all day long. I probably talk to them, at least once a day. So when Zoe went, it was definitely obviously a big change for our family, but we still had Avi here, and I honestly feel like while it was really hard for John and I, the pandemic hadn't hit, so we were out kind of living our lives, if you will. We were, busy, and it was almost harder for Avi to be an only child in our house. And so she would go into Zoe's room and sit on her bed, and she would just like sob, "Oh my God, I miss Zoe so much. I do not like being the complete
Mm.
focus of," she didn't like being the sole focus of John and I. And so we almost like really tried to figure out what we could do to help Avi kind of navigate through that. So that sort of made it a little bit easier, A, because we still had Avi in the house, and B, because we were having Avi's friends over for dinner, so it wasn't like dinner just the three of us. We tried to kind of think of ways that we could make it feel a little bit more manageable, if you will, for Avi. And then we didn't have the pandemic, and so it was just it was hard, but she was only an hour away, and she was so happy. And yes, there were a lot of tears, but it felt very different than
Mhm.
it did this time when Avi went to school. When Avi went to school in August, well, first of all, like the whole summer before, I would have like it was the theme with my therapist. It was like I kept telling her, I'm like, when I close my eyes, I see like this middle-aged woman walking around in her robe with her glasses on, crying because she's like goes in and out of the clean rooms of her home, and she's just alone all day. And that was kind of like what I was visualizing. And of course,
It sounds like an entry of your next of a next book.
I know, right? I mean, of course, my therapist is like, "There's a lot there, Dara." You
Yes,
know?
yes.
Um, but I mean, basically, so I was like really had a lot of anticipatory anxiety about
Mm,
what this was gonna look like. And so, had a lot of, it was like the theme of my counseling sessions for a good quarter, if you will. But
mm.
then it's like when we took Avi, she was so happy, and she went to where Zoe was. We thought she was going to end up going to school in New Orleans. And then thank God that didn't happen. And so it was kind of like, all right, I feel so grateful that she's close by. But
Are
it
they
was
the same college? They're in the same
they're in the
city?
same college.
College.
Yeah, they're really close, and it's been, a beautiful year, even though, it's just been amazing. But um it was really hard, and I wrote an article, and I shared it on social media about how I was really missing my mom a lot
Mm,
during this time when Avi was about to leave, and then when we took her. And I was just like thinking about my mom a lot, like what it felt like when I went to school and I went so far away, and just all of those things were just kind of like hitting me.
mm. So it's like it opened up even just a whole other
Yeah.
chapter of your grief.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that in case somebody listening has not heard your other chapter. The other chapter, the other podcast. So your mom, share a little bit of when your mom passed away, and then also of how basically it was almost like 20 years later, pretty much, of you
Okay.
dealing with a lot of that, just so that people
Yeah.
can relate to
So
that.
I found out the same weekend that I found out I was pregnant with Zoe, my first child. The same weekend I found out my mom had reoccurring melanoma, which is a deadly form of skin cancer. And so my mom passed away a few weeks before I had Zoe. Actually, excuse me, a few weeks after I had Zoe, my mom passed away. And so I found myself in this space having, this beautiful new baby and not having my mom. And I was just devastated. And I did not know how to navigate that. And we
Mhm.
didn't have these podcasts, we didn't have these grief platforms. I felt like I was literally completely by myself, the only person in my friend group who had lost their mom. And I missed her so much. And I did not know what to do to navigate through that grief. And so, I distracted myself. I threw myself into raising my daughter, and then we eventually had another daughter. But I always say, like, grief followed me around like my shadow because it
Mm.
was always there. And then um, I
Did
went
you
through,
know it was grief? Did
no,
you know it was grief?
I
Okay.
didn't.
Isn't
Yeah.
it interesting? Like when we're not aware, like, why am I so sad? And yet not knowing that that is, once you label it, it's so different, right? Once you know, oh, it's grief, it's different, right?
Oh, this is why I feel
Yes.
sad and angry and cry and
Hmm.
alone. And yeah, I didn't know at
Hmm.
all. And so then I kind of, obviously went through life. And when I was 42, I went through breast cancer, which triggered just so much of what I had seen with my mom. And that was terrifying for me to watch my daughters watch me go through that because I mean, obviously it was a very different scenario than with my mom, but nevertheless, it was terrifying. And then around the 20th anniversary of my mom's death, I happened to remember that I had a bag of letters in my house, letters that were written to me when I first went to sleepaway camp when I was 9, until I graduated from college, written mostly by my mom and my two grandmothers. And finally, one night, after realizing that I had this bag of letters and I didn't have the courage to open the bag when I found the bag. So a little bit of time went by, but finally one night I thought, you know what? I want to know what they say. And I sat on the couch, started reading the letters, felt like I was having a conversation with my mom, got to know her better. From my adult perspective, I sort of got a glimpse into what it was like when she was raising her kids, my brother and I. And it was the biggest gift ever, but it also completely changed my life. It helped me kind of find peace, if you will, or let go of a lot of the grief and see it all a little bit clearer. And just taught me so much about life and love and loss and, all the things. So that was amazing.
That was it. And that was the catalyst to then writing your
Yeah,
book.
that's what caused me to write my book. I was just like, this feels like a book. I was working on a different project at the time, and I literally was just like, I am just going to sit down and start writing. And I put the other project away, and I mean, I'm so proud of I Am My Mother's Daughter. And that was before the pandemic hit, and before our country was just flooded with grief and loss and wanting to know how we can connect more. So it's almost like the themes of the book really are what we need now. But I didn't know
Mhm.
any of that was going to happen when I wrote it. I just wrote from my heart.
That, yeah, the timing of it, and the importance of these documents to some extent, documenting these conversations, and how that then also became part of how you then raised your daughters too. Right, with the you guys write in the
Yeah,
journals. So would you share a little bit about that? And then now, how has that aspect of your conversation? And I'm wondering if that's why it also, you missed your mom a lot too. And if all these kind of memories of when you were in college writing back to your mom, if
yeah.
all that kind of came up as well as the girls were going away.
That's a great question. So when my daughters were little, we started what we called mother-daughter journals, and I would write to my daughter Zoe, and I had a journal for her, and I would put it on her pillow, and she would read it, and then whenever she felt like it, she would write back to me and put it on my pillow. And then I had one for Avi, and the same. And so it was just really, super sweet and very innocent. And I used it to boost their self-esteem, or we would work out drama, if you will, just whatever was going on. But there were no rules, we just sort of did it. So yes, when I remember when Zoe went to school, I gave her a journal. Like when I went to leave, I was like, here's a new mother daughter journal, and you can send this back to me through the mail and blah, blah, blah. And of course, I've never received that journal back, right? Um,
That's what 4 years later.
yeah, I mean, but I think what that shows is like, A, how naive I was, but also, I mean, I just didn't know like I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I was
Mhm.
just like wanting so much to keep our connection. But I did start writing her letters when she was in college, and she loves the letters and keeps them. And um, I definitely have, try to write Avi. I try to like sit down and write them each a letter pretty frequently. I mean, maybe a few times a month, ideally. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. And I don't get letters back from them. I'm not doing it to get, I'm doing it to kind of just, it makes me feel good to have that connection. But I mean, we do, thank goodness, technology, right? Like I'm able to, they FaceTime me when they're walking to class or walking back from class or flat ironing their hair. I mean, that's kind of when we talk. And so I don't feel like I'm not in their lives. And that's
Right. And that part of what you're saying too, of the part that you're sending it mainly like for yourself, but it's also, for them to know how much you love them, but because you have seen the significance of
yeah,
those letters in your life now as an adult, opening and finding these beautiful messages and kind of thinking back of like, okay, what did my mom
yes.
go through when I was in college, right? And so for them to now have these treasures as well, that they will one day open a bag of Ziploc letters of
I
of
love
all
it
their.
so much. I was doing an event with Zoe just via Zoom with the book, and Avi was still living at home when we were doing this event. So Avi was like right next to me, and Zoe was in her dorm room in college, and she pulled down. She's like, I save every letter that my mom sends me, and she pulled down the box, and she's like, "Here's my box of letters." And I didn't know that she was saving them until that moment. And I was just like, I love, of course that made me so happy.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a legacy because yes, you're right. The convenience of FaceTime, the convenience of texting, I leave so many voice texts
yeah,
sometimes too, but then it's like those aren't going to
no,
stay.
they don't get
Uh
saved. I
they
mean,
don't get saved.
how
Yeah.
many times have I like thought, "Oh, I love this picture. I want to print it." I pretty much never get it printed. Or, "Oh, I'll screenshot this. This is super sweet text. I want to always have it." Okay, well, I have no idea where that is. It's lost in the
Mhm.
thousands of screenshots that are, you know what I'm saying? Like, but a
Yes.
letter, yeah, I get a letter or someone receives a letter, and I don't get that many letters that I want to keep. So I know where to keep that, and I know where they always are. And I do feel like it's a really beautiful way to connect with people. And um, it feels good to sit down and write a letter. And I think I've heard from a lot of people that have listened to, podcasts and events that I've done. And I feel like every time I hear from someone, they're like, I tried it and it did. And I'm so glad I did. It
Mm.
felt good to write a letter, but the person who received it was so surprised. And that made me so happy. So it's such a win.
Yeah, it is a win. It's just such a beautiful way of showing we've taken the time. When I was younger, my grandmother would always send us birthday cards, and I'd always be like, "Man, we lived in Colombia and she lived here in the States." So the thought that goes into sending something that you're going to receive when it's your birthday and
Mm,
you're like in another country,
that's
that you
amazing.
have to time like when that's even going to arrive. Like I sometimes remember it's somebody's birthday on that day. Like
Oh,
I
I always remember it on that day.
on
It's
that day. So
terrible.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't send a letter today or a card
Oh, the
today.
mail is slow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My family knows, like they get their birthday gifts usually when I mail them like
I'm
way past their birthdays. So yeah, it takes a lot of thought. So that person receiving it really, really knows there was thought and love put into something like that.
yeah.
Okay, so let's go back now into then Avi then leaving for college last August, and now really you and John are empty nesters. How
Yeah.
is this chapter of, because how many years were you guys married when you guys started your family? Like how many years were this just the two of you?
Yeah, that's a good question. We were married for over 5 years before we had kids. And so, but you kind of forget like what that life felt like. Because you sort of get boggled down and raising your kids and life and being busy and, all the things. And then, with the pandemic, like, we all thought the pandemic was over with over the summer. And, we were hoping and things were looking really good. And then Avi went to school in August and it was almost like a light switch. And then things got really bad again. And so I found myself like in my house by myself a lot, like more than I've ever been in my whole life. Because John works downtown and I'm a writer. I'm working on 2 books. Like I work from home. And so it's been a really interesting learning experience for me in terms of getting comfortable being alone, getting
Mm.
comfortable with the silence. But I'm really happy. And, that's, I think, been the biggest surprise is that I'm not walking around in my robe crying because I
The
miss my
what you thought
kid. Yeah,
what you
I'm
were
not
envisioning to
I'm
your
not
therapist.
I'm not roaming the rooms of my house, crying and feeling like, "Where did my life go?" I'm not doing that. I'm feeling like, okay, I'm try to stay in the gratitude space. Like, I'm so grateful for my life and my health and, um, just how close I am with my daughters. I mean, that
Mm.
has been such a joyful this has been such a joyful time in terms of like even getting closer with them. And then, but I have a routine and I have to have my routine because a little bit of structure is a good thing. And that's been something that I've sort of kind of had to play around with, if you will. And then just trying to figure out like how I can connect with people, but we're around my in-laws a lot. So we have to, we felt like we still had to be really careful. And so like reminding myself that this is not going to last forever and like what does that all look like? So it's been interesting.
That that is awesome. No, I'm thinking as to how it is you feel and the being happy, even though it's something that is different and a big change. And I'm wondering if some of those emotions also come from the fact of the relationship itself you have with your girls and
Absolutely.
wondering, right, because you still maintain that connection, like it doesn't feel like you're like they're
Yeah,
gone, you don't see them, connect because they still communicate with you. And wondering too if a lot of times when these big chapters happen, if we if there's this aspect of regret at times too, of like, oh man, I wish I would have done more with my kids when they were home. I wish I would have tucked them to bed more often. I wish I would have. So if there's not this regret and I wish I would have type of thing, I'm if that is an easier transition at times
I
too.
think that there absolutely could be that I wish I would have blah blah blah
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I think it's human nature to feel like, okay, what could I have done better or, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, I will say it's been almost 8 years since I went through breast cancer. And after going through that, it kind of completely changed my whole entire perspective. And I feel like I really showed up to my daughter's lives like on a day to day basis. And I definitely was not like a perfect parent at all. But I feel like I was just being really connected with them and to them, that level of priority just sort of even increased even more. And so I don't feel like, some people say like, oh, where did the time go? I never once thought, where did the time go? Because I actually know where the time went. The time
Mm.
went with us sitting at the kitchen table and, eating dinner together or arguing together or, whatever we were doing because it wasn't always, rainbows and sunshine. I mean, we've definitely, we're, we're a
Mm,
normal family and we have
mhm.
arguments just like everyone else, especially when Avi was a senior in high school and the pandemic was going on. And we had a lot of conflict that year because of what I wouldn't allow her to do to keep
Mhm.
our family safe. But, um, you know, so I never felt like, where did the time go? I didn't have that regret. And I do truly believe that that was like a really big benefit. That's one of the something goods that came from going through breast cancer because it kind of like helped us reframe our priorities at a time when the kids were 11 and 14. So, I never felt that loss of when they went to school. I still felt really connected to them. In some ways, it was a little bit of a surprise how I feel like my relationship with my daughters has gotten even stronger. And that is actually a surprise because I feel like I'm not like nagging Avi to take her laundry up or what time are you going to be home or who are you, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no micromanagement now. And so now
Mm.
it's just kind of like, we're in a different season of our relationship, and especially with my older daughter Zoe, I mean, we're in a completely different season of our relationship, and I love it. Like it's so fun. I'm not going to say I'm not their mom because I'm always going to be their mom. And even though in some ways we're more friends, I'm still going to give them advice. I'm still going to tell them what I think they need to hear, even if it isn't what they want to hear. I'm never going to stop because they need me to be their mom, but it's a little bit lighter in terms of the
Mm.
daily nagging, if you will. Mhm.
Isn't that like role I it's one of those things that I the nagging part that I can say this, I really despise
Yeah,
about my role as a mom. It's like one of those things I'm like, man, I really wish I didn't nag. Yet it's like yet I still like do it. And it's so true. It creates this tension and this like what
absolutely.
you mentioned of micromanaging our kids that it doesn't sometimes allow for further connection because we're in this role of do this, do that, do this. So what you're saying right now of that not really being there, that then it and
It's not there.
allows them space for the real connections. And oh, I'm looking now, it makes me look
Yeah,
forward to that chapter.
honestly, it's truly amazing. Like, I remember Avi's senior year, and it was during the pandemic, and so I remember, like, we were having a lot of arguments in my house. Even I would say even before that, like, Zoe was home in 2020, she had come home and everyone was in the house, and there was a lot of conflict. And I remember one day John came to me, and I tend to be like the bad guy. Like, I'm the one that's, you know, disciplining. I mean, that's just the roles we play, right? That's my
Yeah,
role.
it's roles, it's
Um,
roles.
so I
Sometimes
remember,
they switch and sometimes the other person ends up being the bad you switch, yeah,
yes,
but that's the role you
that
play.
was pretty much the role that I've been playing. So I remember John came to me and he's like, "You're gonna actually damage your relationships with the kids if you don't like chill out a little bit, or if you don't like get like loosen up a little bit, or let them blah blah blah." And I remember saying to him, like, I'm never gonna parent from a place of fear, and I'm gonna like, no, if I feel like we need to do this because it makes the most sense, like I'm gonna have to trust that it's not gonna damage our relationship, but I can never I'm not gonna parent from a place of fear. And I feel like, sometimes parents are afraid to be strict or, say what needs to be said because they don't want to offend their kids or upset them or whatever. But, I think at the end of the day, we owe it to our kids to show up and be the parent that they need us to be, even if it is uncomfortable, and even if it is or does cause like a season of turmoil, if you will. Um, I've just personally found that that never ever has impacted my relationship with my daughters in a negative way long term at all. And I don't have any regrets for, parenting them when I felt like they needed to say no, when I felt like they needed to hear the word no.
Mhm, mhm. What you're saying is so true because it is seasons or times, in their lives. And I was just talking to my son about this, and as I was driving him to school today, about reaction and responding, and like if he knew if like because I had done an event online, and that topic had come up, and I'm wondering he's almost 15, and so saying I said I think a lot of times in my parenting with you I've reacted, and I'm sure you guys too as children reacted to something, but just so you know, like the response is like the things that like you're consciously like thinking. So and what you're saying right now in um saying no when you need to say no, because you know that in the long term will benefit them. It's a way of responding to situations instead of just, like you said, reacting to what's going on. Sometimes we react, but thinking of the long-term effect that that response that you're saying to them is going to have on their lives and impact, and knowing that love ultimately
Yeah.
is the underlying
Yeah.
factor in anything we do as a parent.
And, of course I react. Believe me, there's been many times where I haven't thought through and I've reacted. I'm normal, just like we all
Mhm,
are. And I've made plenty of mistakes. So I never
mhm.
want anyone to think that, like, I don't think that I've made plenty of mistakes. Because trust me,
We all have,
I'm
yeah.
not perfect at all. But I mean, yeah, everything I've done has been through the lens of love for sure.
Mhm,
And, I do the best I can. We do the best we can, John and I together as parents. And, um, I think just being an empty nester, though, it's a really beautiful season because of the relationship that I have with my daughters. Now, would I feel differently if I didn't feel like I was close to them and I didn't have this connection? Yes, I think 100%. Like if they had gone to school and we weren't having conversations frequently and I didn't feel like I was part of their lives, I think it would really pull out my heartstrings, and
mm.
I think it would make being an empty nester a completely different experience than it is for me.
Right,
Absolutely. In
right.
fact, John and I were talking about this yesterday in the car because we have a friend who called us and his son is in college, and he was saying, I never talk to my son. We don't really have
Mm.
a good relationship. Maybe, once a week he'll ask for money or something. But we had a conversation with him and then we got off, and I just John and I were talking and I'm just like, gosh, I feel so blessed. But at the same time, you know, it was always a priority to us. So I think like the way we raised our kids, it was always really important that they felt that like our family was a priority to them. And
Mm.
so I feel like that maybe had something to do. I don't know. I feel like that had something to do with it. I really do.
Yeah, it's just different. Now, let me ask you, as you're talking about your conversations with John. So much of my personal dynamic, sometimes talking to my husband, especially when the kids were little, is talking about the
Oh
kids.
gosh, yes, totally.
So how does that change? How does that shift now that the kids are not home? Is it still is it still that you talk about the kids and the girls in college, or have you realized that now in this new chapter of your relationship, it's like back to talking about things that have to do with the two of you and the plans the two of you guys have? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I feel like if we weren't, I mean, things are starting to get better in terms of the pandemic, but I honestly feel like if the pandemic hadn't been here when we entered into empty nesters stage, if you will, like we would have been talking about more fun things that we were doing. But
We
truthfully,
took
like,
this trip. Yeah, we took this
yeah,
trip to this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we are building a house now, so we have
Oh,
that.
okay.
So we're doing that together, which is really fun. Um, but truthfully, like, we still talk a lot about our kids, and
Mhm.
I mean, I don't I don't find that I'm unhappy about that. I wish we were doing more fun things, but I think that has to do with just the pandemic, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, we are around my in-laws. We've been taking it super, super seriously, and so I'm not I'm not going out and living my best life in terms of like doing all the things that I want to be doing. So I'm writing a lot. I'm in my house a lot. He's an attorney downtown. He doesn't tell me anything about what he does during the day because it's all confidential. So, it's kind of like, how was your day? Fine. How was your day? Fine. Okay. And then we talk about, world events or, my feelings or
Yeah.
whatever. But it's
Just
not like,
regular yeah, yeah,
yeah,
regular.
it's not like we're saying like, "Oh my god, let's go here for dinner and let's go meet all of our friends and let's go blah blah blah," because I mean, we're just not doing that yet, but hopefully we will be soon. I don't
I
know.
love it. Thank you. I know I asked that because
I'm just
it's
being
like me
honest.
projecting. No, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it because it's like what I think of sometimes with my husband Carlos. I'm like, what are we gonna talk about? Like, because it's like,
Oh, I know. Yeah.
like what are we gonna it's like you forget that you actually first were just two. It was
Yeah.
only the two of us first. And then it's like your life starts revolving so much around what the kids do and all these kind of
It
things that
still
then you
does. It
yeah.
doesn't, I mean, for our family, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
I mean, in a good way, in some ways. I mean, because we have our family group chat, but we talk about, we both are interested in what's going on in the world, and we talk about world events, and of course, our show on Netflix that we're binging. Like
Uh
we try to have a show to binge
That all
together.
4 of you talk about?
No,
Yeah, that all
no,
4
I've
of you?
seen John and I. John and
Oh,
I.
you enjoyed. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's kind of what we talk about. But
That's yeah, the
you
same. Yeah,
know,
we're like that too. We binge watch as well. And when we don't have anything to binge watch, we're like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna
no,
watch
it's
tonight?
like, okay, we have to find something. Like,
Yes.
we got to find it. Yeah. So, it's
That's awesome. Okay, now let's talk about the books you're currently writing, and are any of them uh in relation to this new chapter of your life, or what are the
yeah.
themes of these new books?
So one book is a fiction book. I've always wanted to write fiction. That's actually was always my plan. All this other stuff just sort of happened. And it is a fiction book that's in the voice of a mother and the voice of a daughter. And each chapter it fluctuates between the mother's voice and the teenage daughter's voice. And so the teenage daughter is in high school, and there's a son, and the son is in college, and the son is going through some mental health issues, and it's sort of like how that family navigates through that together. And then
Mm,
the mother-daughter relationship and conflict, and all those things.
when do you think that one will be released? What's
Gosh,
the
I don't know. I mean, I
expectation?
have to find a literary agent that focuses on fiction.
Hmm.
So I've written about 60,000 words. So I mean, I'd like to be finished with this book and starting that process sometime this summer.
That's
But
wonderful.
yeah, it's
Now,
fun.
how do you, with the, of course, the voice of a teenager, you've had two teenage girls. Do you draw a lot of inspiration from the type of words or lingo that they would do, or how do you do the research
Yeah,
for these
it's
fictional characters?
I'm so good at writing the teenage daughter's voice. That's easier for me to write than the mom.
That's
Which is
interesting.
really weird, I know, but, I don't yeah, I just draw on I don't have to do a lot of research. I draw
Do
on
you feel
my
is
experience.
do you feel that that's part because a lot of you is still
Oh,
in
yeah,
the, like, is you? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think anyone who writes, you can't for me personally, like, I don't think I could write without bringing my experiences into it. That's what
Hmm.
makes it, my book, if you will, different than
Yes.
someone else's book, so but it's really
Mm,
fun to write, and then I'm working on a nonfiction book with, of my podcast partner Garth Callahan. I'm
mhm.
working on a book with him. Um, so it's about resilience and hope, and it's a nonfiction book.
It's a
So
nonfiction.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
so then for these two, will both of these then will they be when people are in your blog, if they subscribe,
yeah.
will
They'll
it
find
then
out
be
about
there?
that, but these books aren't coming out anytime soon.
For
It's
yeah, it will be a
yeah,
while. But just to be on the lookout, if they're
yeah.
subscribed to your website,
Yeah, they
they
can
will know when
subscribe.
these are launched.
Absolutely, yes, and follow me on Instagram at Crazy Perf Life, and on Facebook at Crazy Perfect Life, and then they'll know all the things for
All of the things.
sure.
And then again, the other book that Dara Kurtz wrote again is I Am My Mother's Daughter. Um, and that can be found on your website as well as
Yeah,
other.
it can be found anywhere. Obviously, you can get it on my website. The easiest place you can get it on Amazon. If you want a signed copy, you can get it. I partnered with my local bookstore, and people can get that from my website easy as well. So yeah.
That is wonderful. Now, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners that I did not ask about this chapter? And this is the first time that I'm interviewing somebody regarding empty nesters. So is there any other question I did not even,
Yeah,
think about
no, that's
asking?
I appreciate that. I would just say to anyone who's literally like anticipating becoming an empty nester, or they think like, oh gosh, my child's leaving in 3 years. I only have 3 years left, or I only have, a year left. I guess what I would say is you make the most of every single day that you have with your family and, um, you know, do everything that you can through the lens of love in terms of the way you parent your child, but also like you don't just have 3 years. You don't just have a year because they're still going to be your son or daughter. They're still going to be in your life. It's just sort of a different relationship, a different season of the relationship. But, um, I spent a lot of energy feeling anxious about it. And
Mm.
that was a little bit of wasted. Of
The
course,
anticipatory
I mean,
part of it that you
we
went.
all do the best we can, and I try not to judge myself because, you know, we all are human, but um, just be present, show up, connect with your kid. And then when your child goes to college, it's a different season, but everything's going to be just fine.
I love it. I think I did this podcast for me. I did this interview is for me because I am one of those like already thinking, oh my God. And because my kids are only a year apart,
Yes.
for us it's gonna hit us like bam bang. So
Yeah.
so I definitely wanted to hear those words. I'm so grateful that you said that to
Yeah.
not
And,
be
I mean, I'm
thinking that.
50. And so, I mean, I'm definitely feeling like there's still a lot I want to do with my life. And now I have a little bit more freedom to do that, especially when the pandemic goes away. So,
Yeah. Except now you have to find a dog sitter because the
yes,
girls aren't there
yes.
to take
But,
care.
it's funny. I will say, make sure get a dog. It's so nice to have like my little dog, my little puppy buddy. I mean, he's my buddy during the day, and he probably gets a lot more attention than he would have if we weren't empty nesters. I definitely think that's true.
I cannot agree more. We have now a second one, and
Yeah.
for us, it's that it is. Our kids are teenagers, and so they don't
They're
need us
busy.
as
Yeah,
much.
they're
They're busy.
yeah.
Yeah, they have their own. So for us, it's like another being that at least we're interacting with. So yes, I agree, and this is without even being empty nesters. They've helped my husband and I even cope with the fact that our kids
Totally.
are not needing us as
100%.
much.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up is that you're right. Like by the time my kids were seniors in high school, I mean, they were so busy with their lives. It's not like they really spent that much time with us
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. So, in some ways I feel like some of the conversations I have with my daughters now are deeper, more meaningful conversations because they're not running to be with friends like they were when they were living here. They appreciate it more. It's just fun. So
I love that. I'm looking forward to
yeah.
that, to the
Well,
fact that I'm like, "Hey, I
embrace
got."
the season that you're in, right? Like make
Absolutely.
never wish your life like everyone just embrace where you are, appreciate where you are, and then but we don't have to be afraid of what's coming next.
Perfect. Perfect, perfect way to change. And that could be for any stage in our lives that we're at, whether you have children or not, just being present, being present and embracing where you're at now, without anticipation and this anticipatory grief or anxiety that comes from the what is may come. So thank you so much
Oh my
again,
gosh, so good to
Dara
see
Kurtz
you.
again.
Always.
Same.
I love our connection. I'm so grateful.
Uh, I am grateful too, and grateful that you accepted to be on this podcast and take some time away from book writing to
Always.
be on here. So thank you again. Thank you again so much for choosing to listen today. I hope that you can take away a few nuggets from today's episode that can bring you comfort in your times of grief. If so, it would mean so much to me if you would rate and comment on this episode. And if you feel inspired in some way to share it with someone who may need to hear this, please do so. Also, If you or someone you know has a story of grief and gratitude that should be shared so that others can be inspired as well, please reach out to me. And thanks once again for tuning in to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. Have a beautiful day.